Good evening, YouTube. How's everybody doing out there? We had a week off last week. Was down in Texas A&M watching the Alabama-Texas A&M game, so we missed a week. Getting caught up this week, though. We'll do a week 5 and 6 rundown, just a total recap of what's collectively happened over these last 2 weeks in the NFL. I'm going to start right off the bat with stating some of the obvious, but has been super surprising to me, maybe for some of you as well, is that somehow the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals just continue to get better, right? Arizona, despite not having their coach, Cliff Kingsbury, at the game, absolutely obliterated the Cleveland Browns. Dallas Cowboys, I thought, had the performance of the season so far. That was a tough game. That was a really tough game. You go into New England, that's a very well-coached football team, a lot of great football players, big-time game, tough game. You win on the walk-off touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb. I thought that was a huge confidence booster for them. I wanted to see if Dallas could go in against Belichick and pull off that win. I'm looking at them right now as the two favorites right now in the NFC. And speaking of the NFC, you know, when you get beyond the real cream of the crop in the conference, the Rams, the Bucks, the Cowboys, the Cardinals, there's really not a lot left. And to that end, the Seattle Seahawks, despite being 2-4, despite the fact Russell Wilson is out for the next few weeks, still might make the playoffs because the NFC is that bad. It's kind of shocking to think about. And on the flip side, the AFC is unbelievably deep right now. I mean, when you think about the AFC West has 3 legit star quarterbacks in the AFC West right now. And I don't know heads or tails who's going to win that division. We've got the Chargers were surging and get absolutely obliterated by the Baltimore Ravens last week. What's to believe? The Raiders, we think they're going to fall off after the John Gruden situation. They go into Denver and they absolutely destroy the Denver Broncos. The Chiefs got off to a horrendous start against Washington and take over in the second half. Mahomes was absolutely brilliant. We know what the Chiefs largely are. AFC West is just the icing on the cake right now. When you look at Tennessee, you look at Indy, you look at Baltimore, you look at Cincinnati, AFC is unbelievably talented. As we look at some of these things, think about the Ravens right now. They're one of my big storylines because despite not having their all-world left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, despite missing 3 running backs right now, their top 3 running backs, they're all out for the season. They've got patchwork. They're bringing running backs in off the street, and it's working, right? Despite not having their number 1 draft pick, Bateman, at wide receiver, the Ravens' offense is absolutely rolling. Lamar Jackson, my midseason MVP right now, and for me, it's not even close. And last, I've heard a lot of talk about this the last couple of weeks. We had conversations about it coming into the season in terms of what do we do if you're the Cleveland Browns? What do we do with Baker Mayfield, right? This is one of the best, if not the best, top-to-bottom rosters right now in the NFL. We've got a great coach. It's what are we going to get out of Baker Mayfield? Well, he's played more than 50 games. So I think what you see is what you get. This is why they invented the franchise tag, guys. You do not need to pay this guy top dollar because once you pay him, a lot of these guys that you've been able to afford to bring in to make this roster so wonderful, you're not going to be able to keep them anymore, right? And you're a borderline playoff team, maybe win a playoff game with this roster, franchise him and figure out a better plan moving forward because Baker Mayfield, you're not winning a Super Bowl with this guy at quarterback. It's just not going to happen. If things aren't perfect for Baker Mayfield, it doesn't work. Crazy accurate, small, slow, and he's going to get injured again. You can bet on it. If I'm the Browns, franchise him and start to think about what's your redundancy plan for the future. As I look ahead to Week 7, want to do just a quick rundown here. My Week 7 picks going into this coming weekend, I'll take the Raiders -3, giving 3 points at home against the Eagles. I was shocked. That was one of the best performances behind maybe the Cowboys that I saw. I actually expected the Raiders to be very flat, going into Denver, going against a division rival in altitude. I did not expect them to play so well. Derek Carr just continues to show why he is that franchise quarterback. He continues to prove himself every week. The Eagles are just, the Eagles are still trying to figure it out. I don't know that Jalen Hurts is the guy. There are moments when I think that he's starting to figure out. There's moments it's like I don't think he knows what he's doing. I don't really think they're that well coached. I think their defense is old and slow. I like the Raiders not only to win, but I think the Raiders cover that 3 points. I think it's pretty easy. Next, New Orleans going into Seattle. Look, we talked about Seattle. This defense sucks, right? They can't stop anybody. The offense is highly skeptical because we've always said, beyond Russell Wilson, beyond those wide receivers, what do they really have? And now that you lose Russell Wilson, you have Geno Smith. The Saints got a really good roster. They're really well coached. They're playing solid football. They're a 5-point favorite going into Seattle. I know it's a tough place to win. I'll give the points, take the Saints to cover the 5. Next, the Ravens at home against Cincy. And we just talked about the Ravens, right? Ravens might be the hottest team in the NFL right now. They just are smoking red hot with that offense as we speak. And I love Joe Burrow. I love what's going on in Cincinnati. Cincinnati fans, you just need to be a little patient here. This roster is not quite there. You got some nice pieces on defense, especially that defensive line. You've got a really high explosive offense. Joe's made a few more mistakes than I would have expected to him this year. Coming off that knee injury, I guess I can understand. They do have an explosive offense, but I tell you what, I just think Lamar and that offense at home against Cincy's too much. I think they do win by a touchdown. They cover that 6 points, but again, man, I really like Cincy. I think they're going to make a game of it, but I do believe Baltimore wins by a touchdown or more. Next one, this might be the hardest one for me to pick, is Tennessee. Remember, the Titans were my AFC South pick, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see them pull the upset right there at the goal line against Buffalo. Fantastic game. I still think that Tennessee has got a lot left to give. And Ryan Tannehill has not really hit stride this season yet. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. It was a lot of talk. Maybe they finally had a real good passing attack to go with King Henry at running back. And what do they do well? Well, they do really well what the Chiefs stink at doing. They can't defend the run. The Titans run it as good as anybody in the NFL. The other flip side, though, is the Titans secondary, especially their cornerback depth, is completely shot. Now, I said this going into the beginning of the season. I would never have drafted Caleb Farley. Remember, for me, he fell out of my out of the top 32 for me. A lot of injuries in college, tore his ACL, which is really unfortunate, but they had other injuries, and that does not bode well when you go into Kansas City to play Mahomes in that offense. But Tennessee's pass rush is starting to come around. They harass Josh Allen. You got Harold Landry. You got Simmons. You got Bud Dupree starting to really hit stride coming back from that torn ACL. If you can run the ball and keep Mahomes off this field, if you can get a rush on him and you make Mahomes move around, we've seen he's been prone to make a lot of mistakes. I think the Chiefs will win this game at home, but I do not believe they cover. I'm going to take the 5.5 points, and I'll take Tennessee. And last, for my top 5 picks for this week, we got the Bears on the road against Tampa. We got the Bears getting 12.5 points. Listen, we know Tampa can score. I expect them to score a fair amount of points on this Bears defense. But what I also know is Tampa Bay is another team whose secondary is absolutely shredded right now with injuries. They have not stopped a lot of people. Jalen Hurts had a lot of success. I'm going to be very interested to see what Justin Fields, Matt Nagy come up with against this Tampa defense, which has not been good this season at all. It's been kind of shocking that a Todd Bowles defense could be this bad. I don't think the Bears win. As a matter of fact, I could easily see the Bears losing by double digits, but 12.5 is a lot to cover. I'm going to take the Bears. I'm going to take the 12.5 points, and I'm going to take Chicago on the road against Tampa. Again, I think Tampa wins. Tampa could win by double digits, but I don't believe they cover the spread. All right, guys. Hey, listen, for all of you out there, would love to get your thoughts, would love to get your feedback on the picks. Again, sorry I missed last week, but it was kind of an exciting week for me as a fan experience. We'll be back next week to do a rundown of this week's picks. But between now and then, enjoy the games. Everybody have a great weekend.